It looks like a typical green text. Be me, bored, late at night. But the more Anons replied, the more the stories started matching their own lives. You're on LurmoStories, where just a story stops feeling random. Stay with me. There's a point where coincidence turns into something else. I checked into a roadside hotel off a long stretch of interstate somewhere in the Midwest. One of those places that looks temporary, even though it's been standing for decades. 2 floors, exterior doors, buzzing soda machine near the ice. The clerk slid the keycard across without looking up and said, "Breakfast is 6 to 9. Wake-up calls still manual." I didn't ask what that meant. Room was clean in a tired way. Patterned carpet, heavy curtains that smelled faintly of detergent, phone on the nightstand with a laminated card explaining how to request a wake-up call. I set one for 6:30 a.m. and went to sleep without much thought. The phone rang at 6:29. I picked it up, expecting the usual recorded voice. Nothing came through. No static, no breathing, just the sensation that the line was open. After a few seconds, it disconnected. Figured it was a system glitch. At 6:30, the phone rang again. Same thing. Silence, then a click. Down at the front desk, the same clerk was there. I mentioned the calls. He frowned and said the system sometimes jumps a minute early. Happens when the board sticks, he said. He wrote something on a pad and crossed it out. Back in my room, I noticed the phone light blinking like I'd missed a call. I lifted the receiver. Still nothing. But this time, before it cut off, I heard a soft tapping sound, like someone pressing buttons very slowly. I left for the day and came back late, closer to midnight. The hallway was quiet, but my room phone was already lit up, blinking again. I hadn't set a call for that night. At 12:47 a.m., it rang. I answered faster than before. Silence. Then, a faint shuffle, as if the receiver on the other end was being adjusted. A pause, and then a low exhale, controlled, like someone steadying themselves before speaking. But no words came. The call ended. I stood there holding the phone, noticing something I hadn't earlier. The laminated card had a handwritten note added at the bottom, in pen, not printed. Please answer promptly. I went down to the front desk again. Different clerk this time, younger, looked like he hadn't slept. I asked about the handwritten note on the phone card. He said there shouldn't be handwriting on those, said they get printed in bulk. He checked the system and showed me the wake-up log. My room number had 4 entries, all scheduled for 6:30 a.m. Only one of them was mine. The others were dated weeks apart. He said sometimes guests forget to cancel calls. I pointed out the dates didn't line up with continuous stays. He scrolled faster, then stopped. One of the entries didn't have a guest name attached, just a room number and a checkbox marked answered. I asked what answered meant if the calls were automated. He hesitated, then said, "Manual calls get marked that way." I reminded him the other clerk said the system was manual. He nodded, then corrected himself. Used to be. That night, I unplugged the phone and set my cell alarm. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not ringing, just vibrating once, like a notification that never arrived. Immediately after, there was a knock at the door. One knock. Careful, not loud. I checked through the people. No one there. I opened the door anyway. The hallway was empty, but the phone inside my room started ringing. I hadn't plugged it back in. I answered it without lifting the receiver. The ringing stopped on its own. From the speaker came a familiar silence, thicker this time. Then the tapping again. Slower, deliberate. I noticed it matched the rhythm of the knock. After a few seconds, a voice came through. Not speaking, just testing sound. Like someone mouthing words without pushing air. Then a whisper, barely audible. My room number. The call ended. The phone went dark. I packed immediately and went downstairs to check out. The clerk wasn't there. The desk bell had been moved closer to the edge, like someone had just used it. Behind the desk, the wake-up call board was exposed, a mess of wires and switches. One of the switches was flipped up, labeled with my room. Under it, taped crookedly, was a note in the same handwriting as the card. Answered. I left without waiting for a receipt. Drove until the hotel lights disappeared in the mirrors. Told myself it was an old system, crossed wires, board staff messing around. That explanation held for about an hour. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Area code matched the town I'd just left. I didn't answer. It stopped after 4 rings, then immediately rang again. When I picked up, There was no greeting, no static, just the same open-line quiet I'd heard in the room. I hung up. A second later, a voicemail notification appeared. Duration, 0 seconds. I checked the audio anyway. At first, it sounded empty, but turning the volume up revealed something faint underneath. Movement, fabric shifting, a breath held too long. Near the end, a soft click, like plastic buttons being pressed. 3 of them, slowly. That night at home, I slept with my phone face down. At 6:29 a.m., it vibrated once. No incoming call, just a missed notification that vanished when I unlocked the screen. I called the hotel later that day. The number was disconnected. Out of curiosity, I searched the address. The listing was gone. Street view showed the building boarded up, parking lot cracked and empty. Comments on an old travel forum mentioned it closing temporarily after a staff incident. One post stood out. A user complained about wake-up calls that didn't say anything, said answering them felt expected. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. Then, one morning, my phone rang at exactly 6:29. Unknown number again. I answered before thinking. Silence. I waited longer this time. Eventually, I heard it. The careful inhale, the pause, the same restrained breath. Then the tapping, 3 presses, measured. After that, a whisper, clearer than before.
Thank you for answering. The call ended. My phone screen showed the duration, 0000. I don't get wake-up calls anymore. I don't use hotel phones. But sometimes, right before my alarm goes off, my phone vibrates once for no reason. No call, no notification. Just a reminder that somewhere, something still marks the box. Transferred mid-semester to a public university in the Midwest. Big campus, generic buildings, everything smells like burnt coffee and disinfectant. No one cares who you are if you don't give them a reason to. I didn't know anyone yet, so I spent breaks in the main common area between the library and student services. Long tables, charging outlets, flyers taped over older flyers, the kind of place where conversations overlap and nothing sticks. That's where the guy first talked to me. He sat across without asking, slid his backpack under the table like he'd done it before. Normal looking, early 20s, clean hoodie with the school logo. "You still thinking about it?" he asked. I said he had the wrong person. He smiled a little, like that answer was expected. "Right, sorry, habit." He left a minute later. I forgot about it. 2 days after, same place, different time. I was on my laptop pretending to read. He sat down again, same seat. "Did you check the times?" he asked. I told him again I didn't know him. This time he frowned, genuinely confused. "You said afternoons were better." I closed my laptop and asked what he was talking about. He leaned back and looked around the room, lowering his voice. "You don't have to decide yet. I just need to know if you're still open to it." There was something rehearsed in how he said it, like he was following steps. I asked him what it was. He stared at me for a second too long, then laughed, too loud. A couple people glanced over. "Never mind," he said. "My bad. You'll tell me when you're ready." That night, I checked my class portal. Under extracurriculars, there was an interview slot scheduled in my name. No location listed, just a time window. It had been marked confirmed. I canceled it. The next morning, a new one appeared. Later that day, I found a folded note in my backpack. Plain printer paper. Still works for us. You can bring a friend if that helps. No name, no explanation. Back in the common area, the guy was already there, sitting in my usual spot. He didn't look up when I approached. "Relax," he said. "You haven't changed your mind yet." That was the first time he used "yet." I stopped using that common area after that. Started eating lunch outside or in random lecture halls. Didn't matter. He adjusted. He showed up outside my economics class one afternoon, leaning against a pillar like he was early for something. When I walked past, he fell in step beside me. "You canceled again," he said, not accusing, just stating it. I asked how he knew my schedule. He shrugged. "You gave it to us." I told him I hadn't given anything to anyone. "That's what everyone says at this stage," he replied. "It's fine." We stopped near the vending machines. He finally looked at me directly. "You transferred in late," he said. "That makes you flexible. Less paperwork, less history." I asked him to explain. Instead, he asked, "Do you remember filling out a survey during orientation?" I did. Everyone did. Some QR code, questions about availability, comfort levels, participation preferences. I hadn't thought about it since. He nodded when I hesitated. "That's when you said yes." I told him I didn't remember saying yes to anything. You didn't, he said. You left options open. That counts. I walked away. He didn't follow this time. That evening, my phone buzzed with an email from a university address. Subject line, participation update. It thanked me for my continued interest and reminded me that backing out late affected others' placement. It suggested reconsidering before final confirmation. No sender name, just an automated signature. The next day, my advisor asked why I'd requested a change to remote learning. I hadn't. She turned her screen toward me. There was a submitted form under my student ID. Checkbox marked, prefer limited in-person exposure. I can reverse it, she said, but it'll flag your file. I asked what that meant. She hesitated. It just means people notice. That afternoon, the guy sat next to me in the cafeteria. Different clothes this time. Same tone. They're trying to help you, he said. You don't want to be difficult. I asked who they were. He picked at the edge of his tray. People who already agreed. I asked him why he cared so much. He finally looked uncomfortable. Because if you don't go, he said, someone else has to. I asked where. He didn't answer.
Just stood up and said, tomorrow's the last day to change your mind. That night, my student ID stopped working on the dorm door. The desk said it was a temporary restriction tied to pending involvement. No one could tell me involvement in what. I stayed with a friend off campus that night. In the morning, my phone had 3 missed calls from numbers with the same area code as the university. No voicemails. Classes felt thinner that day. Fewer people. Or maybe I was just noticing who wasn't there. In the common area, several tables were blocked off with signs that said reserved. No logos, just printed paper. The guy was standing near them, talking to a woman from student services. When he saw me, he excused himself. You're running out of room, he said. Not threatening. Tired. I told him I was done, that I wanted my name removed from whatever list this was. He nodded. That's an option, but it locks things in place. For who? He didn't answer. Instead, he asked if I remembered the question at the end of the survey, the optional one. If selected, are you willing to proceed even if details are limited? I hadn't checked no. I'd skipped it. He said, skipping is still a response. A campus-wide alert went out while we were standing there. Network maintenance. Limited access to facilities until evening. He glanced at his phone. That's earlier than usual. I asked him what happens if I don't show. He said, then you're decided. I left campus before noon.
Packed what I could, sent emails to my professors about a family emergency. None of them replied, but the absence notifications cleared anyway. On the bus out of town, I checked my student portal one last time. My status had changed from active to withdrawn, voluntary. No paperwork, no confirmation email, just a note under remarks. Participant declined prior to final stage. A week later, the university sent out a statement about a pilot program being discontinued due to administrative restructuring. No details. I searched my name in the system from a public terminal. Nothing came up. Sometimes I think about the guy, about how practiced he was, like he'd had the same conversation many times before. I wonder who had to go because I didn't. Last month, a community college sent me a transfer offer. Different state, different system. Attached was an orientation survey. I didn't open it. I donate a lot. Not performative, not for tax stuff. I clean up my place every few months and drop bags at the same charity shop off Route 9. Same place, same people, same metal door in the alley that smells like wet cardboard and old detergent. This time, it was winter coats. Good ones. Clean. I folded them myself, tagged the sizes with masking tape. I walked around back like usual and rang the buzzer. A woman I hadn't seen before opened the door. Late 50s, maybe? Gray hair pulled tight, hands in blue gloves like a hospital. She looked at the bags, then at me, then back at the bags again. Clothing intake is Tuesdays, she said. It's Tuesday, I said. I checked my phone even though I knew. She nodded once, still not moving. What's in them? Coats, men's and women's. She asked where I got them. That was new. I told her my closet, storage unit, normal stuff. She crouched and opened the first bag without asking, ran her hand along the inside of a sleeve, slow, like she was reading something embossed there. Have these been worn? She asked. I laughed a little. Yeah, that's kind of the point. She didn't react. She stood up and zipped the bag closed harder than necessary. Then she looked past me, out into the alley, like she was checking for someone. "We can't take these," she said. I asked why. She said, "Policy." I asked, "Which policy?" She said, "Backroom policy," and tried to close the door. I stopped it with my foot. I wasn't angry yet, just confused. "I donate here all the time." I said my name. I said they knew me. She paused, then opened the door wider. Inside, the back room looked wrong. Too empty. No carts, no piles, just bare concrete and a long table with a single box on it. The air was cold in a way that didn't match the heater hum. She pointed out my bags. "These shouldn't circulate." I asked what that meant. She hesitated, then said, very quietly, "We already have them." I told her that didn't make sense. She said it did, just not for me. She asked me again where I got the coats, slower this time, like she expected a different answer. I felt the first flicker of something then. Not fear, recognition. One of the coats on the table, just one sleeve visible, had my masking tape on it. Same handwriting, same crooked tear on the edge. I hadn't donated those yet. She noticed me looking and slid the box shut with her foot. "Take yours home," she said, "and don't bring them back." I asked what happens if I do. She finally looked me straight in the face. "Then we'll have to ask how you got them twice." She closed the door. The buzzer went dead. I stood in the alley longer than I should have, listening to the heater hum through the wall, counting the bags at my feet to make sure they were still all there. They were. One of them felt heavier than it had a minute earlier. I drove home with the bags in the trunk, telling myself it was some intake mistake, some internal sorting thing. Still, I didn't open the trunk right away. I sat in the driveway longer than usual, engine off, radio dead, listening to the ticking metal cool down. When I finally carried the bags inside, I noticed one was knotted differently. I'm careful with that. Same double loop every time. This one had a single twist, pulled tight like someone didn't want it reopened. I told myself I misremembered. I opened it anyway. On top were coats I recognized. Below them were coats I didn't. Same brands, same general style, but older. Smelled faintly of dust and something sour, like a basement that floods once a year. One had a dry cleaning tag dated 8 years ago. Another had a name stitched inside the collar. Not mine. I checked the other bags. Same thing. My donations layered over other donations, compressed like they'd been vacuum sealed together. No bugs, no rot, just handled, sorted, returned. I started pulling them out, laying them across the couch. The pile grew too fast. More coats than I owned, more than fit in my closet. I counted, 37. I owned 19. That's when I noticed the pockets. Not valuables, not notes. Receipts. Slips of paper with dates and times. Donation tags like the ones they print in the front of the shop, but stamped in red instead of blue. Each one had a short line written under it. Declined, duplicate, intake conflict, source unresolved. One of them had today's date. I called the thrift store, straight to voicemail. I checked their website, temporarily closed, no reason listed. I didn't sleep much. Not from fear exactly, more from the feeling that the apartment was crowded. Every time the heat kicked on, fabric shifted. Not footsteps, just soft friction, like coats settling against each other. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was short. Please stop redistributing. No punctuation, no signature. I replied, asking who this was. The reply came back immediately. You're creating overlap. I asked, overlap with what? 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then a photo came through. It was the back room. Same concrete floor, same long table. Only this time, it was full. My coats stacked neatly, tags facing up. And behind the table, barely visible, were more bags, identical to mine. Masking tape, my handwriting, variations of it, cleaner, sloppier, older. I checked my closet again. Half of it was empty. I knew what was coming before the knock, but that didn't stop my stomach from tightening when it happened. Slow, polite. 3 taps, evenly spaced. Through the peephole, I saw blue gloves. I didn't open the door right away. The knocking didn't repeat. Whoever it was knew I was there and was willing to wait. I stepped back, heart steady but loud in my ears, and noticed something else wrong. The coats on the couch were no longer arranged the way I'd left them. Sleeves overlapped more neatly. Tags faced outward. Someone had improved the pile. The knock came again, same rhythm. I opened the door a few inches. It wasn't the woman from the shop. It was a man, early 40s, average in every way except his posture. Straight, careful, like he was being watched from above. Blue gloves, clipboard held flat against his chest. "We're missing inventory," he said calmly. No greeting. I asked who "we" was. "The intake system," he replied, as if that explained everything. He glanced past me into the apartment. His eyes tracked the coats immediately. "You were declined this morning," he said. "That usually resolves itself." I told him nothing had resolved. I told him my closet was emptying itself. I told him coats were appearing that didn't belong to me. He nodded and made a small check mark. "Cross-contamination," he said. "It happens when donors don't let go cleanly." I asked him how to fix it. "You already know," he said, and finally looked at me directly. "You keep trying to give them away." He stepped forward without waiting and crouched by the pile. He picked up a coat and checked the tag inside. "This one came back 4 times," he said. "That's excessive." I asked where they were supposed to go. "Out of circulation," he said. "Some items don't transition. They retain context." He stood and pointed at my hallway closet. "You've been removing them faster than we can stabilize the record." I told him to leave. He did, immediately. No argument. At the door, he paused. "Tonight," he said, "the system will correct the count. Whatever's left at intake stays." After he left, I checked the coats again. More tags had appeared, red stamps, new handwriting that looked like mine after a long day. "Final pass. Owner conflict. Ready for hold." I understood then, not fully, but enough. I loaded everything into my car before dawn and drove past the thrift store without stopping. Kept driving until the bags were gone. Dropped at places that didn't ask questions. Laundromat benches, bus stops, apartment lobbies. By noon, my closet was full again, exactly 19 coats. That evening, my phone buzzed one last time. "Count balanced. Thank you for your cooperation." I don't donate anymore. Sometimes, when winter starts, I find a coat I don't remember buying. Same brands, same sizes, always fits. I leave it where it is. It feels heavier if I try to move it. This was LurmoStories, and we've reached the point where the audio stops, but the paranoia doesn't. When you hear a random notification tonight, try not to think of the threads we just went through.